This is the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast. This is the first installation of our series to Airbnb or Not to Be, where we discuss how to turn your investment property into a short-term furnished rental. On this episode, we have Brook Reilly, who specializes in the home renovation aspects of turning a property into an Airbnb, and him and Mike Reilly will talk about the process.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Reilly here. I'm with Brook Reilly, and we're going to be talking about locating, finding, and renovating that house of yours that you may want to turn into an Airbnb. So, Brook Reilly, give us a little background on yourself.
30 years old, live in Cleveland Heights, first-time homeowner. So I'm coming up on, I think it's 2 years?
2 years of home ownership. Ooh.
Mortgages, home insurance.
Surprise repairs.
Well, I'm lucky to be in the work field that I am. If anything comes up, I can always rely on some people here to help me out. But no, 30 years old, been working full-time for the company since past 7 years. But, I've been helping out probably since I was, 8 or 9.
Whether you liked it or not.
Yep. I joke around with my friends whenever they would get in trouble, instead of having their phones taken away or their, laptops taken away, I would go out and clean gutters or chop wood or wash trucks. So.
Right. Yeah. So, well, here you are.
Yep.
Homeowner and getting homes ready for people to rent. Okay, Brooke, well, now that you're a homeowner and you have years of experience working in a contracting company, you started out maybe 4 or 5 years ago. You were working with one of the top crews in terms of working with the designer, working with the renovation, so you saw all the pieces and parts that we needed to do, right?
Yeah. I really had to be working side by side with someone to really get to know, how to do this job, and I'm still learning how to do certain parts of the job.
And that's what we're going to touch on briefly here. We'll have other podcasts talk about the nuts and bolts of the work order and the blueprints and et cetera, et cetera. But the first thing we obviously have to do when you're deciding on Airbnb-ing a property, locating the property. Where is this property going to be? You just don't buy any property. You don't buy a property in the hood and think you're going to get a high-end Airbnb client in there. You have to buy a house with the understanding that this is going to be an Airbnb property. So location's going to be real important. Mm-hmm. And so location close to, like in our neighborhood, would be University Circle, the Cleveland Clinic, University Hospital. I mean, we're 5-10 minutes away. It's a perfect location for that. It's a perfect location for people that are looking to rent short term because they're looking to buy. So again, they're going to be wanting to live in a nice, safe neighborhood. So we've identified our property, and we've identified the location. Now we've got to start looking at the street. Now this is very, very important, where a lot of people don't appreciate. Certain neighborhoods that have block associations, they have street, a real tight neighborhood. They don't like having Airbnb on that street. They want to know who's living next to them. They don't want to have a parade of people coming in. So there are certain markers that you look for in terms of where you want to buy that house. A corner house where it's really not that, it's not in the middle of the street, it's at the end of the street, it's on the corner lot. We have a property, Burlington would be a great example of that. It's right on the corner, the house is set back. Many people never even knew who the original owner was when we bought that. So location's going to be very important. But then we get into how we're going to renovate, and that's what I'm going to start talking to Brooke about. How do you renovate this house? You've got to establish a plan up front of how you're going to renovate it, and I will emphasize that enough. Fail to plan, plan to fail. You know, it's all well and good for you out there who know how to do a flooring, you know how to put in doors and windows, you know how to put sink. That's secondary to making sure that you have a plan which has a work order and hours and costs. So a lot of homes renovating, that could be anywhere from 600 to 700 man hours, could be $20,000 worth of materials. You better keep track of every day, every half day, and have a plan going in about what you're going to get done during the week, what you're going to get done during the day, what you're going to get done during the half a day. And you better not spend half your day running back and forth to Home Depot or picking up stuff. That stuff better be there ready at the end of the day for the next day's work. You want to add to that, Brooke?
Yeah, well, just speaking of that, a quick story, because that happened exactly to me yesterday, where I was set up to make a trip to Home Depot to pick up a bunch of PVC pipes. We're kind of waterproofing a basement, and something came out of left field. I couldn't make it to Home Depot. I had to find ways to keep my guys busy, because the worst thing that you can see on a job site is your crew just standing around, not doing anything. So I really had to readjust my schedule, and from last night even into this morning, where I had to get up a little earlier than expected. I had to go to Home Depot. I had to pick up all my plumbing materials so that when my crew arrived there at 8, everything was there and ready to go. If I'm not organized, it's really hard to do my job.
Now, one thing I've learned in terms of managing this contracting company, building it up over 45 years, is that I've realized when we hire people coming in that you say, "Are you organized?" And you know what? Everybody thinks they're organized. Most people I run into that come in here, they're not organized. They're not organized. When I talk about organizing, I'm talking about a script. You are scripting your day out. Like from 9 to 10, I'm doing this. From 10 to 11, I'm doing this. You have your material list that you're building so that when you go to Sherwin-Williams or Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, you know exactly what you're buying. Everything is scripted out. And then that script is vetted. And what I mean by vetting your script, I mean that really, are you the one that takes the trash to the dumpster, or can you delegate that to somebody? Because if you're the foreman of a job, if you're running a job and you have a couple people working, half your time is spent organizing the workforce and putting together a list on top of list, looking at that list, vetting that list. Your thoughts, Brooke?
What works for me is, as long as I have at the minimum the first half of the day already planned and scheduled, I always try to make sure that the full day is scripted. But one thing I've learned from working on these job sites, I mean, there are things that'll come out of left field that you just can't schedule that. You can't plan that. You'll have guys, who might oversleep, and that one guy is
your lead guy,
your driver.
Yeah.
So I always have to have, and this is what I usually do at night or first thing in the morning, I always come up with a backup plan in case something like that does happen. I'll save something very easy, like painting a basement ceiling. I know that I have the materials there, I have the manpower there. Anyone can do it. If something happens where my driver didn't show up and he was the one who was supposed to go to Home Depot and pick up some stuff, I always try and save certain projects to keep guys occupied. Because like I said at the beginning, the worst thing that can happen, or one of the worst things that can happen, is if I'm not there and guys are they're standing around. They're not doing anything.
Now, but that all begins with a basic overall plan. So the first thing you do when you buy that house, obviously you got to negotiate the price. You got to make sure you're looking at the price of the house. You have to have a sense of how much do I need to put into this house to get it to a valuation that's more than what I put in. So you buy a house for like $50,000. And you're sitting there and you're going through every single thing you've got to do to the house, from washing the windows to landscaping, tearing up the old wallpaper, tearing up the floor, putting in some doors, doing some carpentry repairs. Does the garage look okay? Do you need put a new roof on? Do you need to upgrade the electrical? How's the plumbing? How's the toilet? Do you have any leaky faucets? I mean, every single thing you have to do is listed out. And then you have to make sure you have your hours. It's going to take me, some guy is going to be here for a week, 40 hours stripping the wallpaper. Somebody's going to be outside, cutting the grass, weeding, trimming the bushes, washing the windows. That's a week's worth of work. And so you're coming up with roughly, when it's all said and done, I'm going to have 600 man hours of work with all your lists, including your time. And then you have how much you're going to have pay a sub to come in, electric, plumbing, whatever. So you know before you make an offer on that house what you have to do for that house. And that's going to be your general guideline map for then the work order you're going to put together. Okay, so we've located the house. Is this going to be a flip, or is it going to be a long-term hold where we're going to do an Airbnb? You want to explain what a flip is, Brooke?
Yeah, a flip is when we buy a property, we look at what repairs we need to do to sell it at a certain amount. So that's what I would call a flip.
Now, I want to just digress a little when we talk about flip for those people that are out there that are really excited about buying property, fixing up, and selling it for some huge profit.
Yeah, like those reality shows.
Right. That does not work. I want to just disabuse everybody in the Cleveland area because they're making a fundamental mistake when they figure out what they made. They're not figuring the time they spent fixing it up. Yeah, sure, you bought a house for $50 and you sold it for $125,000. You didn't make $75,000 on that. What you made is after you pay yourself all your time, you pay the subs, you pay the materials, you've got workers there, and you've got to ask yourself, if I went out and did a contracting job, like put in a new kitchen, painted a house, fixed this, I had the same crew, how much would I make on that? Okay? And then you got to compare that to how much a flip would make. Now, usually what we found pretty quickly about 15 years ago when we started doing it, we were making more money going out doing miscellaneous repairs, cleaning gutters, fixing a garage, doing this, than we were doing when we were making on a flip. There is always going to be, when you get into properties, an illusion of what you're making. It's not based on reality. The reality is, how much is your time worth? If you spent 7 days a week for 2 months and you made $10,000 on this flip, you made $2 an hour when you factor in the overtime. All right? You've got to have that kind of discipline, not just in planning the work, but then measuring how much money you actually made on this. And you see that with the man hour, Brooke. I'm kind of getting into the weeds here about, the man hour and the flips and what did you make versus a retail contract job. But you've seen this when you're working with the office and the man hours. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so for me and for the office, in our computer system that we created, our man-hour profit needs to be at a certain amount. If it drops below that certain amount, we know that we're not hitting our man-hour profit. So all the hours, the materials, the sub-costs, everything is projected into our system, and it's tracked, and that's how we know that our jobs are going well.
A good way of you share my passion for the book and movie Moneyball. So Moneyball, for those of you who have seen it or those who don't, Moneyball is all about analytics. And analytics is what we do here at Reilly Painting and Contracting and our startup Reilly Properties. We're doing analytics. And it's funny because about 20 years ago, I remember we did some $50,000 kitchen. $50,000 kitchen was, that sounds like a sexy job, right? $50,000. Let's say it's $75,000. Wow, I'm in the Beverly Hills contracting, stuff like that. I figured out that at the end of the day, we made $5 man-hour profit. I want you to think of $5 man-hour profit. If I went out and took a crew of 2 guys and we went out and cleaned gutters for a week, we'd be making $25 a man-hour. Cleaning gutters, cleaning out a garage, cleaning out a basement. We made probably $10,000 on a $75,000 job. Gutter cleaning, 2 weeks, $10,000, easy. Without the hassle, without the customer breathing down our neck, without this, all the trouble. Now, what I'm getting to is, and Brooke, you would relate to this with your crew. When you go into these flip jobs, you're looking for a certain kind of flip. You're looking for a flip where it's not a lot of heavy, specialized work that needs to be done, where you have to bring all these craftsmen in. That's what you have to do for a $75,000 kitchen. You have to bring in, guys that make $25 an hour, okay, versus 12 or 15. So if I locate a house, it's an estate, the bones are good, there's maybe a little bit of upgrade on the electrical or the plumbing. Okay, well, I know I'm going to bring in my electrician or plumber. But most of the work can be done by our junior crew.
Yeah, very rarely have we done a flip where, it's a fancy new kitchen or a fancy new bathroom.
Yeah.
Because we know that you lose money doing it that way.
Yeah, and so your audience here, now, again, we're tying it back to the whole Airbnb goal, okay? The Airbnb goal is about, what is the expectation of the people that are going to be coming to Airbnb? Do they really care whether it's a granite counter or a real nice Formica counter? Do they need a Viking range? Or would a nice, clean, working range suffice? Do they really need a tile floor, or would be a nice linoleum floor? And the bathrooms are clean, they're working, the shower, the hot water. People are looking for a certain level of accommodation. They're not going to live there. They're not going to buy the house. They're staying short term. And so what they want is a nice, clean, safe house. They can walk in, they can turn the TV on. They know the fridge and the stove work. It's nice and clean. It's not dirty.
Yeah. A good story on that is I went to Toronto a couple weeks ago with my girlfriend, and, we picked the real sexy Airbnb. It was on like the 20th floor looking out over the city. And, pictures were great, hardwood floor, beautiful kitchen, open space. And we get there, and the guy was illegally renting out his apartment. So here we are. We just spent $600 on Airbnb. We're in a new country, and we were stuck. We didn't know what to do. We were kind of scared. So we found a real nice Airbnb that they said we can legally rent this out. I didn't care about a fancy kitchen. I didn't care about, a big screen TV. I was at the point where I had just driven 6 hours. All I wanted was a roof over my head, heat, and a shower. And I didn't look at anything, I didn't care about any of that stuff. And I think that when people travel and they're staying short term, they don't really care about all the fancy stuff. They just want to know, are the basics here? Is it clean? Is it close to where I need to be? Is it in a safe neighborhood? So yeah, I can speak on that.
So that's, we've located the house. We figured out what we need to do to put into it to get to that Airbnb good model, not Beverly Hills, granite counter kitchen, glamour kitchen. It's going to be nice and clean. We know how much time we're going to have to spend in it. We've got X number of hours, we have X number of materials. Okay, we bought the house. Now Brooke's going in there. And some of the tips and tricks you've learned working with our Sherwin-Williams rep, painting Formicas.
Yeah. Nowadays, you can pretty much paint everything, just as long as you prime it the right way. We've painted bathroom tiles, we've painted kitchen countertops.
Appliances.
Yep, you can get spray paint. They make it in a stainless steel color. So you can pretty much paint anything that you really want.
Right, and one of the things I learned a long time ago when we started buying foreclosures is sometimes you go into a house, it's a really nice looking house, and not a lot of work, but the basement's a problem, the foundation's a problem. That's our Maple 2 house.
Yeah, and I talked to our rep, and he advised me on a specific product that you paint basement block walls, and we used our jet roller. So far, there's no stains.
But we also isolated where the leak was. Yeah. And you don't have to spend $10,000 with a waterproofing company. A lot of times, explain what you were doing in one of our properties with the basement, where it was leaky mold.
Yeah, so we, after figuring out where the source of the leak was coming in, one of our other senior foremen met with me there, and what we did, instead of hiring a basement waterproofing company that would probably charge $20,000-$30,000, we dug probably a foot trench around the basement. Currently, right now, my guys are installing PVC pipes in the basement, in the floor, and connecting it to a drain so that when the water comes up from the ground, it just drains into the sewage drain.
Right, a lot of this stuff you can find on YouTube. So, a lot of times you can pick up a real nice house with probably a $20,000 discount because people are freaking out over like mold, leaky basement, whatever, and it's real easy to fix. Yeah. And again, if you're setting this up with an Airbnb, obviously you can't have any mold, you can't have any fleas, got to be nice and clean. I get that, but you can still pick up a house if you can look past its blemishes and know that you can really turn this around. It's kind of like taking a penny and shining it up. Same thing goes, and I know we'll touch on this in another episode where we start furnishing it, how we furnish it. But Brooke, you're more speaking to painting the tile in a bathroom, putting in a real nice floor without getting into tile floor, putting in a real basic vanity. What are the other things you've learned in terms of upgrades that make a house look nice without, spending a fortune?
Washing the windows makes a huge difference. There's really just the type of materials and products that Home Depot sells, that Sherwin sells. There's real cost-effective ways to improve a room. Like, for instance, the bathroom at Maple 1, before we started the renovation project, we installed new flooring over top of the existing flooring. It's a vinyl, it's a peel and stick, it's super cheap. The box probably cost $30 at Home Depot.
What was the box, the vanity?
No, the box of the flooring. So the
box of flooring
material cost probably $30. Took my guy about 4 hours to install. It looks like brand new hardwood, but it's vinyl and it's peel and stick. Instead of replacing the vanity and the medicine cabinet, we painted it, a cool color. We cleaned the shower, and I don't know, you walked through it a couple days ago.
Looks great. And the other thing you could do is actually go to Habitat for Humanity, their resale store, pick up vanities there. You can spray them. I mean, it's fun. Once you get adept at polishing up great old furniture. I mean, Travis will talk on that in terms when we talk about furnishing a house. But again, what we want to do, the clean windows, I can't speak enough about that. Clean windows, clean landscaping. You walk in, there's mats, the carpet's clean, the beds. I mean, that's what people want. And so you can when you buy a house to set it up as an Airbnb, I want you to keep one thing in mind. You are buying an investment. Now, if you can do this right, it's going to be fun. It's going to there's going to be a lot of other hoops you're going to have to go through, and we'll talk about that in our next 2 episodes. But the renovation work, to sum it up, for this house is you are looking for a house where 80% of the work is stuff that you can do, not 10%, 80%, strip wallpaper, wash windows, clean floors, paint walls, stuff like that. And then a few things you're going to have to bring the expert in. Would you agree with that, Brooke?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about man-hour profit. And maybe we're getting a little bit deep into the weeds. Maybe this is like, for some of you listeners here, this is maybe your junior, senior year, postgraduate stuff. But man-hour profit is very, very important. It's similar to return on investment. So, for example, if you own a house, and Brooke, you said, hey, I'm a first-time homeowner. Let's say you bought that house for $100,000. Hey, after 5 years, that house is worth $110,000. Well, that appreciated by 10%, right? Mm-hmm. Divide that by 5 years. That's appreciating 2% a year, right? If you put money into your IRA and you bought some stocks and you put $2,000 in your IRA and you bought a basket of stocks, at the end of the year you're looking at your how much it's worth, and it is now worth $2,200, which means you made 10% of your on your money, which is a good return. Now, let's talk about man-hour, and I'll use a different analogy for man-hour. Let's say that you get paid, you're working at a company, and you're getting paid $50,000 a year. In fact, I had a friend of mine who was a chef who was making $50,000 a year. And I remember asking him if he could free to play golf one week. He said, no, I got to work. Guy got to work. Every time I turn around, this guy's working. And we were sitting around a year later, and I said, how many hours do you think you work a year? And he said, well, I probably work about 60 hours a week. And I did the math. Now, maybe you people out there can take out a legal pad. $50,000, that's 60 hours a week times, let's just say 50 weeks. Let's say he gets 2 weeks off, right? All right, so that's 50 weeks times 60 hours. That's 3,000 hours. 3,000 hours to make 50,000. Now, factor in the overtime. There's 1,000 hours worth of overtime there. I did the math, and you know how much this guy was making per hour? $10 an hour. $10 an hour. When you really looked at how many hours you worked and how much money did you make, then do it out. I mean, the guy could work at McDonald's. I mean, no disrespect to McDonald's or fast food. He wants to work, 3,000 hours, man. He could make $50,000. But it was something around that. Maybe it was $12 an hour. But when you factor in that overtime, it was staggering what that guy was making. Now, maybe he loves being a chef. And I mean, I love running a company. So to me, I know I make more than $12 an hour. I know that, Amari, you're laughing. But no, but the point is that the man-hour profit is the yardstick we use to really give us a sense of how much money we're making at every job we do. So if we're out cleaning out a garage and we charge somebody $250 to do it, it takes a guy 5 hours to do it. We pay that guy $15 an hour. Guess what? We just made $25 a man hour, right? Okay? So our goal is to make somewhere between $20 and $25 an hour gross on the man hour. That's what we're looking for. So I'm cleaning out a garage. I'm cleaning a basement out. Maybe I'm hanging some storm doors. Maybe I'm repairing a faucet, sending one of our guys out to do that. Every one of those jobs we have to say, all right, these jobs are all making around 20 to 25. Now, how much is the flip making? How much is that glamour kitchen making? And you know what? The flip doesn't make a lot of money. When you really crunch those numbers, when you add up how many man hours you spent to get it from A to Z to when it closes, how much did you make? And you will be shocked at how much you didn't make that you thought you made when you do the math, like our chef friend. Now, the difference with Airbnb is that you have an investment. You have money that's going to be coming in as you rent it out. You're going to have tax deductions, and you may have appreciation as that house grows in value. So it's a lot more complicated. But at the end of the day, it may be better for you to hold on to that property for a period of time than to flip it. Okay? Because if you hold on to that property more and more, the longer you hold and the more you're getting back with rents, the actual profit that you made is growing. Because now you're adding in the rents, less your expenses. So I don't want anybody to get all sexy time with the Airbnbs. It's a business. It's an investment. For you Borat fans out there. Go ahead. Brooke, kick in here.
No, I mean, if I could just segue into something that is similar. I've recently been reviewing my own finances, and, I was really struggling with a way to, how do I track this, and,
health insurance is going up.
Yeah, and okay, how do I work on my cash flow? Because when I get paid, and when my girlfriend who lives with me, when she pays her rent, how do I...
You got to up her rent, Brooke.
Yeah, maybe. No, but, there's all these apps out there, and, they were really complicated. And what I figured out over the weekend was, well, why don't I just institute the same spreadsheets that I do for a job into my own finances? Mm-hmm. And I put in all the numbers, and, I'm the type of guy that I like the numbers. I like when everything... adds up. I think, I just think a lot more, I'm clearer when the numbers are accurate. And when I put in, my expenses, my money in, it was really shocking to see just how much I was spending just on total crap. And the same can be applied to going and spending money on materials and and the laborers. You don't need to spend $1,000 on a new vanity. You can spend $70 for a cool can of paint, a couple hours of labor. It's not going to look like the brand new vanity, but it's going to look a lot better than what you have now. So there's a real correlation between what I was going through couple weekends ago into what I'm doing now, and I'm tracking. I mean, I've always been tracking the numbers and the materials for, a project, but it's kind of cool and it's strangely addicting to do it now with my own finances. Because if ever, because I've gone through a lot of job sites where the man hour has just plummeted because I screwed stuff up. It's a scary feeling. But when the numbers are right and the office is happy, the man hour's where it's supposed to be, you're staying on track. It's like, okay, I'm halfway through this job. Yes, I've gotten the kitchen done. I've gotten all the walls done. I'm on schedule. It's a good feeling. And at the end of the job that, okay, we hit our price point, the hours are good, materials are good. Hey, the sub charged a little more than we thought, but we deducted some hours here so that the man hour would stay at a certain price point.
Well, I think like anything, your personal finances, or let's get, when we're talking about renovating a house, what we're doing now versus what we did 15 years ago is night and day. I mean, now we know, we've learned from experience, house after house after house after house. So for those of you who are really serious about a 5 to 10 year commitment on acquiring property and building a portfolio, hopefully these series of podcasts are going to help you. But what's going to happen is you need to have that feedback coming through on the hours, because it's kind of like what Brook was saying about his personal spending. In this economy, the era we live in, I mean, they just play you like a fiddle out there with these recurring charges. You sign up for Spotify, you sign up for iTunes. I mean, you look up, you're spending $150 on recurring charges.
Yeah, I just realized that I've been charged for Apple Music for a whole year, and I had no idea that I had Apple Music.
Oh, they love that. They love that.
So that's $150 right there down the drain.
Yeah, gift cards. 50% of the gift cards purchased, never cashed in. I mean, they love selling gift cards. But, now I'm getting off on one of my tangents. Let me get back to reality here, which is Brook's expenses, learning from every house that you buy. Make sure you are tracking every hour, every expense. Put it in a spreadsheet so that you can track it, look at it, study it. Be aware of what of how things are going on a daily basis and then on a weekly basis. And the last analogy I could use, I use this a lot at work, the old driving from Cleveland to Chicago. Okay, first time you drive to Cleveland, Chicago, okay, maybe it's like 7 to 8 hours. Why? Because you hit rush hour, you started the wrong time, whatever. When Travis was visiting his friend, he was doing that back and forth. I'll tell you one thing, what he learned for every trip, this is when I leave, this is when I avoid the Dan Ryan, this is when I do that. It got better and better and better. And that is what you want. Your first house, your first project, you need to record everything to recognize the potholes to avoid on your next project. That's important. And that's how you're going to get better and better at this.